every household is part of the building block of any economy. And therefore, the impact of any economy must be felt at household level. In other words, any fundamentals you see, once you have power supply bottlenecks anywhere, everything is affected. The internet services are affected. So there was a break in transmission, in the stream, shall I say. So, the building block, or shall I say the building blocks of any economy are households. In other words, every household economy matters. It is at household level that economic activities begin from a household, because every household has someone who is working either for a family business or someone who is working in one of the sectors of the economy. So meaning that any economic progress must not just be measured by the macro indicators, but also the micro indicators. In other words, whatever gains that are made economically must be felt by all the citizens. It is not enough, for instance, to keep talking about growth, even talking about projections, if that growth is not felt at household level or in the individual lives of the citizens. It is not worthy singing about. So when I'm talking about the economy, for the sake of an average citizen, we are simply talking about the goods and services that are produced in any economy over a year, expressed in monetary terms as a common denominator. Why is money used as a common denominator? It's because, if let's say you take, because of the differences in units of output in terms of services, including products, and therefore expressing or using money as a common denominator is the easiest way to tell economic activity at the end of the year. So if you are singing about GDP, growth in GDP, by any percentage, you are simply talking about the total goods that were produced in that economy, and that's it. And GDP does not necessarily look at which of those services and products were actually produced by the people of Zambia or in the country. It doesn't tell us that. So the quickest way or the best way any government can make a fool of the people is to keep thinking about GDP. There's growth. Now, if that growth is not seen in terms of jobs, if that growth that does not translate into increased income levels among the workers, it's meaningless. If that growth does not translate into increased income levels among the people, that growth is useless. It's not helpful at all. Because if you are looking at the output, especially when you look at copper production, we've been talking about copper production. So, if Lumwana or any of the mining corporations produce 800,000 metric tons of copper this year, to economists, they'll look at 800 metric tons. If they increase in the coming year, they increase by 20,000. For them, they'll look at that increase as to determine the total, growth, and they'll say, in terms of GDP has grown. But how is the economy benefiting? How are Zambians benefiting from high production in copper? Especially that the mining companies are taking out these mineral resources without even paying taxes. Governments, especially the current government, promised the people of Zambia that we are going to introduce windfall tax, which has not been increased, which has not been introduced. They were talking about many other progressive tax reforms in the mining sector so that the Zambian economy could retain its fair share from these important mineral resources that we have as a country. Now, if these people are mining and then you give them holidays, tax holidays, and they use what is called price transferring, meaning that the same company which is producing copper in Zambia has a company outside the country owned by the same owners, and therefore, in the name of buying equipment that they are capitalizing They're recapitalizing the operations. They are buying equipment at very high cost, which some of them, of course, are exaggerated. They inflate the prices so they can take the money out. But the companies that are receiving that money actually belong to them. So they are stealing from the people. They are stealing from the country. And then you go ahead and even give them tax holidays, you give them concessions. Why should it be difficult to give such concessions to the people of Zambia? If you can give foreign corporations tax holidays, if they can take these things tax-free, and then you go to the citizens, you look at the tax revenues that we think about, more than 75% of those tax revenues are actually is pay as you earn. It's the Zambian workers who are sustaining operations and other direct taxes by ordinary marketeers, ordinary traders, cross-border traders. They are the ones who are making also a huge contribution to tax revenues. Now, the big fishes, the big types of these big corporations that must pay more, the big companies that must pay more, multinational corporations, are not paying. And then we are crying foul about the difficulties that we are facing as a country. We do not think that this is correct. Now, in order to address the issue that we are covered during the press briefing yesterday, especially the directive to banks to reduce interest rates, let me state that every economy rests on two pillars. Pillar number one, fiscal policy. Fiscal policy has to do with government spending and taxation. Two things on the fiscal policy. Fiscal policy rests on government spending and taxation. So the moment any tax rate is set, let's say corporate tax, pay as you earn, among other taxes, income taxes. So the state can effectively take away money from the people, taking away money from the pockets of the people. If, let's say, corporate rate is 35% or 40%, it means that corporations or companies, they have lost revenue by 45% or 40%. If pay as you earn is at 40%, 37.5%, 35%, it means that of the total income that a Zambian worker must receive, more than 35% is taken away. That money is not available. So this has an impact on the economic activity. Rate of taxation. It has an impact on money circulation. It has an impact on disposable income that citizens must have. But it also impacts even the unemployed, because whoever is living pays tax. I'm really sorry about the disturbance in the live stream, internet bottlenecks in our country. And this is the reason why this current governing party must be voted out of power come 2026. We can't live like this in the 21st century. It's quite annoying. Internet must be very basic. So they keep disturbing this broadcast. So what am I trying to say? That even those of our citizens who are not in employment, they also pay taxes. As long as you are living, as long as you are putting on clothes, you are paying tax. Because when you go and buy that t-shirt at Salaula, that Salaula seller paid tax when bringing in those clothes. So at the end of the day, that tax is computed as part of the cost of the product. And therefore, when pricing, the trader will pass on that cost to the buyer. So the ultimate payer of taxes actually are the users or consumers or the customers. So everyone therefore pays taxes. And this is what you need to understand. So when taxes are high, the money available to citizens is less. The money in circulation is equally reduced. It plummets. That's what taxation does. Now, these instruments, they are under the fiscal policy of any government. So the power to try and stimulate demand, to try and stimulate increase in disposable income is in the hands of the government. These are in the hands of the cabinet. It's for cabinet to decide to reduce taxation and scrap off pay as you earn. Pay as you earn is one tax that must be scrapped off. Now you may ask, when people have more money, what will happen? People talk about inflation. You don't know what they're talking about. But I think that time alone would tackle that, to address that, when people have more money in their hands, because you are making funds available for investment even at household level. If you have more money, you are going to invest in a salon, you are going to invest in some kind of housing project. So you are also helping to address, therefore, the deficit in housing. So every citizen, therefore, can be part of the building of the economy. That's why we are saying the building blocks of any economy are households. So any economic impact must be felt at household level. It's not enough to sing about GDP at national level if that doesn't translate into improved livelihoods among the people on the ground. And this is essential for all of us to understand and appreciate. So in terms of the fiscal instruments, central government has the power to increase spending. Now, we're not talking about increasing spending. We are talking about increasing spending in growth sectors, especially those sectors that have a multiplier effect. Meaning, when you increase spending in that sector, it will have many forward and backward linkages. In terms of backward, there will be more activity. Forward, there will be more activity. So it will have a multiplier effect. There will be more people to benefit. There will be more increased economic activity. This is the wisdom that the state managers must have. And understand that there is no economy anywhere in the world which has grown without addressing these policy measures we are talking about. Now, the difficulty that we have in Zambia is recycling. The same people who are cabinet ministers, the same people who are part of the past failures, we keep recycling trash into political spaces. If you are a minister under a particular government, you need to show us what you did. If you are Minister of Finance, then what did you do? What are your successes? What change can you bring today? We can't use the same people with the same mindset that they had when they drove us into difficulties to expect, and then we recycle them and we expect to change. It can never happen like that. Now, we come to the directive, presidential directive to banks to reduce interest rates. This is very embarrassing. It's very embarrassing. And unprecedented, I think, in the history of presidencies around the world. It's never heard of. It's embarrassing to the country. That statement is a national embarrassment. I'm very embarrassed as a citizen to have leaders directing banks to reduce interest rates. How can banks reduce interest rates when you, the same people calling for reduction in interest rates, are the culprits? Don't make a mockery of the people, of the citizens. So, this takes me to the next policy pillar. I said two pillars, fiscal and monetary policy. So, the monetary policy pillar of the economy has to do with, we are talking about the financial instrument. This has to do now with the policy rate and the statutory reserve ratio. Now, these are under the central bank. Ours is called the Bank of Zambia. So, whereas government is fully in charge of the fiscal framework, the monetary framework is in the hands of the central bank. But remember, the central bank is also under the government. So in other words, government still has some kind of control there. So, number one, the statutory reserve ratio. What is it? This is the percentage of the money that the banks have, which they must deposit with the central bank in reserves. That's a reserve ratio. Zambia's reserve ratio now is among the highest since independence. It's at 26%. The statutory reserve ratio now is 26%. So it means 26% of the money that banks collect must be deposited. It must be held. With the Bank of Zambia. That's the money which they cannot spend. So in other words, this affects liquidity. It affects circulation of money. So 26% is money that banks, it belongs to the banks, but they cannot spend it. They can't make it available to that the small scale entrepreneur who would like to access that credit. So the reserve ratio also has an effect on the cost of money, because the less money you have available for banks to lend out, the higher the interest rates. Bank of Zambia increased the reserve ratio from 17%, they increased by 9 percentage points, from 17% to 26%. It's among the highest. Remember at one time we were during the monastic regime, the reserve ratio actually reduced to around 10 thereabout, sometimes to even go into the 1 digit level, thereabout 12% thereabout, 11%. Even part under this previous government. So money was in circulation. Now you increase to 26%. What reason did they give? No, because they want to see stability in the foreign exchange market. That was the reason that they gave. But there are more instruments again. There are more issues to all these things. Because sometimes, especially if you have leaders who are single-minded, myopic, who are rigid, people can't be advised. People can't take the counsel of others. When it comes to national governance, you cannot know it all. Even if you are the best economist or the best lawyer, you cannot say you are the one with the wisdom to govern the country. When it comes to national governance, you need to tap into the wisdom of each and every person. The voice of every cabinet minister counts. The voice of every controlling officer counts in the running of government. You cannot have a kind of leadership that is just single-minded. What you knew in the 1970s, that's what you think you know up to date. What you read in a textbook, a theory, you think that's what you must just stick to. It doesn't work out like that. This country needs leadership. This country needs a leader. Zambia is not looking for managers. During the campaigns, we want the Zambians, that these people, the current governing party, they were clear. They said they were economic managers. They didn't say that they are leaders. So what we have is a team of management staff. These are just managers. That's all. Now you cannot have a manager to run. You can't have managers to run the economy. You need leaders, because a leader will deal with managers. Somebody managing each and every sector. Now, if you have managers, then everything is micromanaged. Because the manager is sticking only to those scripts, what he or she knows will bring this out. Now, the manager cannot tell the board of directors, with the people of Zambia. A manager says, give me 3 more years, give me 4 more years. We can't accept that. Because when you are employed as a manager, you are given targets. If you can't meet the targets, you must be fired. Don't tell the employer that, no, please give me 4 more years, then I'm going to deliver. If you have not delivered over the past 4 years, I'm not talking about another 3 years. When you had 4 years, we have had 4 years. 4 years so far, going to 5 years. No. Come on. Gentlemen. Ladies and gentlemen, we can do better. This is common sense what I'm talking about. It's wisdom that I'm talking about. Wisdom is never taught in a classroom. You can never learn it like that. And most importantly, knowing that there is God in heaven. And out of the fear of God, to do what is right and just for the people. So, the other instrument is the policy rate. Now, the policy rate, this is the benchmark interest rate, if you like. The policy rate is the benchmark interest rate. The Bank of Zambia, I think in November this year, set the policy rate at 14.25%. 14.25%. That is the policy rate. In other words, that becomes like the benchmark. The central bankers plays a role, Bank of Zambia plays a role in setting the benchmark interest rate. It's benchmarking. So you can never expect any interest rate, therefore, to be below that. Because there are also other costs to money. There's what we call the cost of money. Remember the reserve ratio. It's affecting money supply in the economy, money available for borrowing. And then the policy rate also, it's high. We have countries with policy rates as low as 5%, 3%. And look at interest rates in those countries, 1.5%, 2% interest rates, bank lending interest rates. And people have access to capital. Zambians are very industrious. It's not correct to say Zambians are lazy. Young people of today are very enterprising. Very smart young people, there's a G generation. What they need are tools. Give them the means, give them the capital that they need. And this is doable. We are not talking about government money, so to speak. We're not talking about giving capital to these young people. All we are talking about is, please, police measures. That's the weapon you have. And we need to be passionate about what we want to do for our country. Remember, the moment President Sata was sworn in as President of the Republic of Zambia, all employers, Kamwana, we were told, even everywhere, Kamwana shops, everywhere, they increased the minimum wage. Because they knew the kind of leader would come. You cannot afford to have weak leaders. Because weak leadership is in the talking and the talking and the talking, and in the morning you are talking and the talking, stories. We don't need the stories. We know about those stories. Zambians need not be told about their sufferings. They know they are the ones who are suffering. They know about their sufferings. Zambia need action. Zambians need actions. Actions speak louder than words. Incumbency is not defended by words. It's not defended by storytelling. Incumbency is defended by action and output. That's what incumbency, that's what defends incumbency. If people are just criticizing for its own sake, the people will judge that no. Look, bank lending interests are lower. We are accessing money. These people have delivered. They don't need to defend. You don't need to labor defending yourselves. You don't need use conferences where I speak for 2 hours, 3 hours. You don't need that. When you deliver, you have delivered. And the people of Zambia are wise enough to decide to let, no, please. All these others are just making noise. These people have delivered. So talk less, do more. That's all. It's as simple as that. Do you have the instruments of power? You have them. You cried for these instruments of power. You suffered. And finally you have them. And then you are failing to use these instruments of power. It's a matter of going for a cabinet meeting tomorrow and decide to adjust these policy measures that I'm talking about. But this calls for a visionary kind of leadership with understanding of where the country is being taken. So, now look, as I said, the reserve ratio represents the percentage of the deposit that banks take from the depositors, which must be held with the Central Bank of Zambia, and that's 26%. It's not available. Then the policy rate, 14.25%. What is the lending interest rate in Zambia? 29.12. 29.12. That's the bank lending interest rate. And the people of Zambia today are highly indebted. Whereas it's complicated to even access these loans from banks, especially if you don't have collateral. We have seen the emergence of many lending institutions that are just ripping off the people. Civil servants are highly indebted. Private sector workers are highly indebted. There's pressure, mental pressure. It's also affecting the mental health of citizens. That's why today we have seen an unprecedented rise in suicides in the country. This is a crisis that the Minister of Health must even address, seriously speaking. There's too much mental pressure among the citizens. Families are highly indebted. Debt has become unsustainable, even at household level. Who is the culprit? The government. Because you have put reserve ratio 26%. Look at of course, banks. Why is the banks even like 3% higher? Because of the cost of money. There are so many things, mind you. And also, the other factor is government borrowing. When government becomes the lead borrower, it crowds out the private sector. I'll repeat that. When government becomes the lead borrower, the private sector is crowded out. A bank would rather lend money to government because they know they are sure government has many securities. They know money is more secure. So, when that money available, mind the 26% is reserved, and then government becomes the biggest borrower. Using your money, taxpayers, I mean, they borrow and then they're spending, of course, I'm talking about, they borrow that money, and they're spending, they have been spending that money in some of the sectors which are not even growth sectors at all. So, with that increased borrowing from the government, small-scale entrepreneurs have no chance. They stand no chance. Even big companies, they stand no chance. And that further increases the cost of money because of the demand now on borrowing from the banks, which has been increased by the government itself. Another question that we need to ask this government is, for the past 4 years, government defaulted, the government in repaying the Eurobond. So meaning, for the past 4 years, the government of Zambia, at least insofar as the Eurobond and all the other funds that the government borrowed, they have not been paying back. What improvement have we seen in the economy? They have not been paying those millions. If we compute from 2021 to date, how much money of that money that they should have paid, which they have not paid? Because Zambia was under default. When you go by credit rating, it was in the default category. We needed to see more activity in the economy. We needed to see more progress. Meaning that this government, ever since independence, became the first government which for 4 years was not repaying the inherited debt. Of course, we are not disputing, they inherited it after a lot of careless borrowing under the PF government. And in fact, even all that said the Eurobond, if the PF invested in key sectors, like that project they spoke about of the railway network, among other projects, including more energy generation, because Zambia is at the center. Therefore, Zambia can become the center of excellency in power generation and can feed into our neighboring countries. So if they invested in such sectors, and because of their demand of electricity in the region, Zambia could have made a lot of money. So Zambia could have been repaying that money from these huge cash cows. This is a cash cow project, strictly speaking. But they were just spending money in non-growth sectors. Of course, on infrastructure, that is commendable in terms of infrastructure. But more of those funds should have also gone to other cash cows, like power generation. And Zambia today could have had surplus power. So this is very simple. This is what we're talking about. But we know you can't do these things. Why? Because even by your very nature, you can never want to. When I'm talking about the behaviors of some people, you can tell that this one or this kind of, they can never listen to advice. Leaders are not lecturers. You don't go to lecture to the people. If you're a minister, you can't go to lecture to technocrats. If you're a president, you can't lecture to your cabinet. You need to listen because cabinet ministers are representing sectors. What are the issues and each sector has many stakeholders? If you're the Minister of Mines, there are mining companies, but mining companies, we're not just talking about foreign corporations. You need to care more about the local mining companies. I'm talking about those small-scale miners who are Zambians. What are they saying to help them? I don't mind about all these foreign corporations. I'm minding about the local stakeholders. So this Minister of Mines, therefore, is representing those voices across the country that are in the mining sector, including traditional rulers, such that when he presents a cabinet memo, it must be driven by evidence-based policy pronouncements. So therefore, if you are the president, you cannot say, no, listen to me. No. The president must listen to what is coming from the ground. A leader must listen to what is coming from the ground, not what is in the head of a leader. If you have theoretical ideas, now listen to practical ideas. The Minister of Local Government is also dealing with chiefs. This minister also is dealing with of course, the council workers, is also dealing with markets, dealing with marketeers and young people and other traders. And therefore, when this minister comes to cabinet, this minister is coming with the mandate of the people that are in the local government sector. And therefore, those voices that are coming from these people, when the minister is speaking, the president must listen. It doesn't matter that you are weak. No. At one time, when I was member of parliament for Kasama Central, in 2006, President Chishimba said something very interesting. He said, presiding over a cabinet of intelligent men and women is very exciting. That when you sit there in the chair as president, and let them work, that's what you were saying. A former president, experienced. He ruled 10 years. Before, of course, misgovernance after 1996, that first 5 years, you can't take away the credit of the so many other things, that reforms that you have brought against socialism, scientific socialism, which saw Zambia's economic ground and the focus on self-preservation. So he said, listening to intelligent people. Ronald Penza, may so rest in peace. That speaking in the cabinet, Dr. One, they are speaking, he said it's very interesting, mighty one, listening to debates. And they're arguing, so forth like this. At the end of the day, they will agree to a point. Not the president imposing. No, they will agree to a point. And then from that consensus, it becomes collective responsibility. That's why when you go to parliament, cabinet ministers don't speak their minds, because theirs is collective responsibility. Even if they oppose an idea, and as long as it came out of cabinet, theirs is collective responsibility. They are bound by decisions of cabinet. For backbenchers, they are not bound by collective responsibility. They are bound by what their constituents are saying. And that's why you cannot steal for debate in the House. You cannot keep looking on using a cake, pieces of registration, colonial instruments, colonial statutes, ordinances, to keep imprisoning members of parliament who must be speaking for the people. This is unprecedented ever. Go in the state of Zambia and see if there's any government which started imprisoning members of parliament for speaking out on the issues. Whether a member of parliament, Speaker Manumabo was saying, they are going to be cantankerous if they said something without evidence. It's for the House to verify that, or to subpoena anybody, I'm talking about an institution which was cited by a member. They can subpoena, they can call them to the House, they can so they can hear. The member of parliament didn't have facts. Well, it's too good enough, because somebody maybe was a whistleblower, something could have happened. Backbenchers have that freedom. And you cannot be using courts to silence members of parliament. You have a parliament which is just like part of the executive. And you are talking about democracy. This is a joke. So, this takes us to the credit rating of the country. That Zambia now has moved to, it's now no longer in the default among those countries that in the default category. Now, again, we are waiting. Oh, now, with projected growth, and this is good. Fellow citizens, the credit worthiness of a company, or a person, or a country, as important as it is, it's not enough to bring about growth. Because again, they are saying now because of this, and therefore we are going to see an increase in foreign direct investments. Again, we go back to the syndrome of foreign investments. Countries that brought economic revolutions, Asian tigers, Malaysia, among others, Singapore, they have to embark on agrarian policies, reforms locally, putting local people at the center of development, including India. Indians among the most industrious people, backyard factories, backyard projects, including Mauritius, here in Africa, Mauritius. There are so many backyard projects there. Go to Bangkok, Thailand. Backyard perfumes being made in the backyard. There's so much activity among the citizens there. handmade what products coming from Thailand, top quality products, and then they give them export subsidies so that the country can benefit from huge exports. And in Africa, Zambia is used as a dumping ground. So there's nothing to celebrate about. The fact that you are credit worthy doesn't mean that now let's go borrowing. What is this borrowing that you are doing? You are going to borrow when you have resources. We can close the copper mines, you can put them under care and maintenance, and only pick emeralds, fellow Zambians, just emeralds, the emerald sector. And we ensure that we introduce blockchain technology to manage every precious stone being mined everywhere, and to stop all these revenue leakages from this important sector. The economy of Zambia can thrive without copper mining. Let me repeat this. We can put copper mines under care and maintenance and just focus on one sector. Let's just pick emeralds. Forget about gold. Emeralds alone can sustain, the revenue therefrom can sustain this economy. But as long as we have a leadership that prioritizes national interest and just decide to raise these to harness these massive resources and inject them with the people, invest them with the people, before even talk about borrowing. What borrowing are you talking about? You have not been paying for the past 4 years. What have we seen? Nothing on the ground. Meaning that this government had a breathing space, but you're not seeing this on the ground. So banks, even among all these things that we're talking about, you cannot go to direct. You can't direct banks. It's very scary. That would scare even an investor, even locally. When I'm saying investors, I'm not talking about foreign investors. I'm just talking about local people. If a bank can be directed as if banks are state or they are owned by the state, you can't direct banks. Banks respond to the policy instruments that you have in your hands, the policy measures that you are taking. That's what they respond to. It's very simple. You cannot expect bank lending rates to reduce to 2% when the reserve ratio is 26%, when the policy rate is 14.2%. It's never done like that anyway. How do you expect them for this to happen? And the cost of money is high, and there are many factors that affect the cost of money. And people say, no, when you increase the revenue, you increase money supply through all these instruments, these policy measures, then there'll be inflation. Nonsense. Now, when I'm talking about leadership, that how do you, if there is more money in circulation, yes, address supply bottlenecks. So this inflation that we've been seeing, one would ask, why is inflation rising? The reason is very simple. There are many supply bottlenecks right now locally. One, because of the energy crisis. Factories are not producing as they should produce. So, when you have few goods, therefore, that's what will happen. Or production capacity is affected somehow. And then when production is affected, obviously, it means that because we have competition, of course, different producers. So this actually helps with price reduction, because look, when Dangote, before the coming of Dangote, in the cement or shall I say quarrying and whatever cement sector, Sri Lanka was exploiting citizens with pricing. Sri Lanka, whatever it is called now. Dangote came. Look what competition came in that sector. Look at how the prices of the price of cement reduced by more than 100%. You know, I'm speaking the truth. You saw this. So this is what we need in industry. So when the energy crisis, how many factories is affecting all this? When the energy crisis is impacting on these corporations and factories, you don't expect to be more production. How many factories can survive, can find it sustainable to be running on generators? Because not everything can run on solar. These are huge factories. Trade kings among many others with factories. Amanita mentioned them. So this issue of energy, the energy crisis, it should have been declared as a national disaster. From the very beginning, this is a national disaster. And begin to take measures and prioritize it. instead of talking about Bill 7. In a country with such a crisis, you will start talking about Bill 7. No, now for us, all government change the constitution. Government must change the constitution. Oh. What kind of thinking is that? Now remember, the constitutional amendments, when I talk about constitution, we don't have a constitution. I don't like using this word constitution on a foreign act of parliament. The same Church too. Remember, it was based on the Commission of Inquiry, which was under Chona. Then that changed under UNIP. Yes, it was in an election year. We are not disputing that. 1990 Mvunga, there was a commission, full commission. Yes, there was a change. You are right. We are not disputing that fact. That's correct. 1996, MMD, the Manakatwe. Yes, again the same thing. It was in an election year, but there was a commission. Remember that there was a commission. And the good thing is that all these commissions received the same submissions, same consent of Zambians, same propositions of the citizens. Then we had the Mungomba, the last commission. So, then, but then the Mungomba under President Dave Mwanawasa didn't get to the point where they amended. President Bana took over. No amendment was done in that election year. So you can't say in any election year they have amended, there hasn't been an issue. Again, there you are not saying the truth. Somewhere. But to a large extent it's true that we have seen amendments in an election year. Then we come to 2016, sorry. Again, it was an election year. That's true. But it was by way of, remember that for the PF, their approach was different. They picked submissions of all the commissions. And then, whereas Part 3 has been the same from that British Schedule 2, Part 3 has been the same, because that requires a referendum. So they are trying to touch on it, removing deputy cabinet positions, but all these things that these submissions have been coming from Zambians from 1972. No need for deputy cabinet ministers. The only thing that all governments don't do is to include that provision that cabinet must be outside parliament. That no government wants it. And yet people want that. That's why you can't call it a constitution. Because it's only in an act of parliament where government is one which decides. Because it's just an act of parliament, which can be challenged for unconstitutionality when you have a constitution, proper constitution as a country. So, then we saw that 2016 one. Now, you cannot compare Bill 7 to the amendments based on the Chona, based on the Mvunga, based on the Manakato, and based on the Mungomba. So the Mungomba was implemented under the PF in 2016. Some of the Mungomba provisions, pronouncements. Now, this Bill 7 must be compared with Bill 10, which was in an election year, of course, we are going to 2021. Zambians rejected it. So comparing Bill 7 with Chona, Mvunga, Manakatwe, and the Mungomba is like comparing a rabbit with an elephant. That's a joke. Let's stop joking. Leadership is very serious business. It should not be for jokers. Let's stop joking. Let's be serious with this power that we have. And be honest with ourselves. It's not helpful to like oneself to feel good about yourself or yourselves. It's not correct. So let us address these important issues, these emergencies. In conclusion, hate speech. Hate speech, in its very character, in its very name, must be hated by all. Zambia is not one Zambia only nation. It's one Zambia, United Nations. We are a federation of 73 tribes, 73 nations, including those, of course, what I can say, 74th nation. I'm talking about those of Zambians of Indian origin, those who cannot identify with any of the tribes. They are part of us. They are Zambian citizens. Some are Greeks. They are Zambians. So, no single tribe should feel threatened to be annihilated by any. Touch one tribe, touch all. Must be the phrase. It must be our motto. Touch one tribe, touch all. We need to be condemned. The tribal talk which was unprecedented under the PF. It's a fact that the PF government on national television were calling out the Tonga-speaking people. This is a fact. We can't run away from this. It's a fact. Tongas were under attack on TV, public broadcast, ZNBC. Cabinet ministers issuing such statements. And the president then didn't condemn those cabinet ministers because you expect such a minister to be fired. That no, if you take God and then you put this one here, this tribe will vote for this one and not God. No, that was extreme. And we condemn that even today. That cannot be allowed. If anybody has made a mistake, let's not attack the tribe. Attack the person who has made a mistake. Hate speech must be condemned. And must not be entertained in our republic. Because we are all equal shareholders. With one share in the republic called Zambia. No one has two shares. Now, for a leader to say, I'm hated because of where I was born, no. Come on. No. Ladies and gentlemen, no. Every president, every leader has had critics. From Kaunda, they stood up to criticize. When you are criticized, even if that publicity is negative, accept it graciously. Kings are insulted, queens are insulted, leaders are insulted. But Kaunda would say, those insults are lotion to me. That was Kaunda. I apply them. It's lotion to me. Beautiful lotion. That's a leader. You don't have a big heart. Because the moment you begin to take every advice, like I'm speaking here, I know, Chishimba hates me. That's personal trait. And I can touch the venom. I can touch it. No, sir. No. That's not correct. That's not correct. So now it's like this is a ploy now. Because to say if I speak, then to be because of where I come from. No. We are all Zambians. That I think must cease in terms of coming from the mouth of our leaders. It's not correct. It's not personal. Yes, some people in the way they speak, they're very personal. Some are like that. But even among those who are speaking personally, there are also those who are structured, who are fair. There's what is called fair criticism or fair commentary. So pay attention to fair commentary. Even some of us who are speaking like this, we are not saying that we are enemies. If there's anything sensible that you think that we speak or somebody else speaks, call the person. Meet and, discuss openly. Discuss in an open environment. This idea seems to work. How do things work? Like, one of us was very good at that. That's why one wants to call his enemy, in invented commerce SATA, they would sit down and talk about Zambia. They came to that. He was not saying, no, because of where I come from, you hate me. No. They sat down for Zambia. Looked at it and said, this is good. And remember President Mwanasa, he said, SATA, give me sleepless nights. But I thank him that without SATA, I couldn't have delivered. So in other words, those who are speaking are also playing a role. They are saying, don't go to sleep, wake. In other words, it's a call to work, a call to deliver, a call to speak less, a call to do more. And like those of us who don't have those instruments of power, we can be a talk show. In your case, you can't afford to be, government can't afford to be a talk show, the governing party. You must be in the business of delivering on the promises. Be in the business of actions. Be in the business of results and speak less. People see, they will judge. That no, this one is just speaking. This government is working. Go to work. Don't cry, don't play victim. That's not correct. That strategy will not work. And that will not stop us from speaking out, bring out the issues that affect all of us. Because when problems come, they don't select. It's all of us who are affected. So in unity, love of neighbor, and understanding, let us work together and deliver for Zambia. And better Zambia, rebirth our country in liberty, freedom, and glory. This country was once there. Remember, 1964 to 1973, when Zambia's economy was among the strongest in the world, when Zambia's currency was stronger than a pound, we were once there. We can go to those winning ways and do them again. Thank you.